on AFR Talk. Listen to the audio podcast or download today's program at afr.net. You can also read Brian Fisher's columns at onenewsnow.com. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email us anytime at focalpoint@afr.net. focalpoint@afr.net.
Hi, and welcome back to this free-for-all Friday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. I am Brian Fisher, your congenial, convivial, and amiable, as always, host. Great to have you in the conversation. And I'm honored to welcome to our Focal Point studio State Senator Chris McDaniel. He's a state senator in the Mississippi State Legislature, and this is particularly timely for us to have him here because he's a part of a story now that's been covered by the national media. Senator McDaniel has chosen to throw his hat in the ring and take on in the Republican primary an incumbent senator, Ted Cruz, who's been a long-term incumbent representing the state of Mississippi. Senator McDaniel, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Well, let's start with kind of the obvious question. We've got a Republican. He's an incumbent. He's represented the state of Mississippi for decades. So why are you going to launch a primary challenge against an incumbent Republican senator?
Well, for many of those same reasons. We are literally fighting for the Republic right now. We all know that in our hearts. Things are sensitive. Things are serious. And my generation has to step up and make a difference. A couple of issues there. The first, we've got to fight to restore the Constitution. We have to have a voice to restore the Constitution. Second, our spending has to be controlled. One of the greatest moral crises of our generation is the national debt. $17 trillion, $90 trillion in unfunded liabilities. We've got to make a difference. And lastly, we're going to put the stake finally right through Obamacare's heart. We're going to make a difference. It's time for my generation to fight and to be heard, and that's necessary for us if we're going to make this country great again.
Now, Senator McDaniel, you've gotten off to a terrific start. I mean, really, it's been kind of remarkable, the number of prominent conservative groups that have already come out endorsing you. I'm looking at a piece from the Washington Post from yesterday where it announces the Club for Growth has endorsed you. The Senate Conservatives Fund has endorsed you. The Madison Project has endorsed you. I don't know, Club for Growth and Senate Conservatives Fund, their endorsement's not an idle thing. I mean, they're very careful which horses they choose to back. So what's the significance of the fact that these conservative groups have jumped on board your campaign so early in the process?
We share the same values. We share the same principles. They understand this is a movement. It's not about one individual. It's a movement, and we're a part of that movement. They share the idea that we have to reclaim this American greatness that we've lost, to bring certainty out of the uncertainty, because that's where we are. We're lost right now. We need new blood and new energy to do just like that. And you're right. These groups, they're very selective as to who they choose. So I'm honored, more than you know, to be selected by those groups. It likewise means that they are serious about what they're doing, and they know we're serious about what we're doing. We did not enter this race to lose. I promise you that. We're going to fight for traditional values. We're going to fight for the conservative Constitution, and we're going to fight to make sure this country is restored.
Let me ask you another question, Senator McDaniel. Talking here with State Senator, State of Mississippi, Chris McDaniel has launched a primary challenge against an incumbent Republican senator in Mississippi, Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz was asked, well, let me ask first of all, your evaluation of what Senator Cruz did. He had 17 senators along with him.
He did.
Voted against this increase in the debt ceiling, voted against the continued funding for Obamacare, became the center of attention, kind of brought a lot of political machinery to a halt in D.C., a lot of criticism of Senator Cruz, even from people in his own party, the Lindsey Grahams, the John McCains. So what's your assessment about what Senator Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Lee, those guys did?
Well, imagine this. He's being ostracized and criticized by people in his own party, his colleagues. And what did he do? He stood. He fought. He led. He did everything they haven't done over the last 40 years, and he's criticized for that? Probably the most disappointing part of the criticism was the idea that here this guy is, he's 42 years old, and he's not doing it the way we always do it. Wait your turn in line. Wait your place, young man. We don't have time to wait. We are $17 trillion in the hole. The time of waiting, the time of compromise is over. The fact that he stood despite that criticism, the fact that he led despite his being attacked, that shows courage, and it shows conviction, And it's something we've been needing in D.C. for an awfully long time. I'm proud of Senator Cruz. I'm proud of Mike Lee. And if I go to Washington, I'm going to fight next to him.
Now, let me ask you this question. Well, that was the next question. Let me jump to that question, because if you are fortunate enough to prevail in the primary, fortunate enough to prevail in the general election, you will go to the Senate as a young freshman Republican senator, just as Ted Cruz was, just as Rand Paul has been, just as Mike Lee has been. Those guys have gone in there and they have rocked the House. Like you said, they didn't wait their turn in line.
Yes.
You know, Ted Cruz said, look, I've been sent here by my constituents to do a job. So let me ask you this point blank. You get to D.C., who are you going to identify with? Who are you going to run with when you get there? Is it going to be the John McCains, or are you going to run with the Wacko Birds? What's it going to be?
What a great question. Easy. I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm not going to Washington to be liked by the insiders. I'm not going there to be wined and dined by the lobbyists. I'm there to save a republic. To the extent that Ted Cruz remains a constitutional conservative, I'm with him. To the extent that Mike Lee remains a constitutional conservative, I'm with him. The idea that we are sitting there just getting along as our country sinks deeper into despair and deeper into debt should alarm us. It alarms me. That's why we entered the race. We have no intention of sitting idly by and watching this happen.
Now, a lot of people, Senator McDaniel, and I don't mean this in any way as an insult to you at all, but we've heard a lot of candidates say that.
Yeah.
You know, you send me to Washington, I will fight on your behalf. If necessary, I will shut that place down. I will bring it to its knees to restore the Constitutional Republic.
Sure.
And then they get there and they fold like a cheap Bedouin tent in a stiff desert breeze.
Sure.
So why should the voters of Mississippi believe that things are going to be different with you?
That's fair. I'll tell you why. I've been to the state Senate 6 years. I have a record. Look at my record and recognize it for what it is. It's a strongly conservative record with no compromises and no surrenders. Likewise, even before that, this message that I'm delivering is a message I've been delivering for 20 years. It's been consistent. You're not going to see any waffling or equivocation. I had a talk radio show much like this for some time, and this is the message I delivered. After I left that and ran for office, this is the message I delivered. At the end of the day, the only thing that saves this republic is a consistent message of conservatism, traditional values that awakens the people. They've been asleep too long. The only thing that can save us are not politicians like me or others. The people have to wake up and reclaim their government. The storms have to blow. It's our job to make them recognize that the storms have to blow and then to persuade them to go forward.
Let me ask a couple of specific issues that are obviously facing our government, deep concern to conservatives all across America. One is Obamacare. Second is this runaway government spending. I mean, right now, Senator McDaniel, we do not even have a debt ceiling. I mean, President Obama has been given a blank check through February 7. Sure. Nobody knows how much debt we're going to incur. No restraints whatsoever on him. So with those two issues, as a senator, if you were to go to D.C., obviously you're not going to be in position in January to do something about this, but if you were fortunate enough to get to D.C. next November and things are unchanged, what will you do? What do you think needs to be done to stop Obamacare and to bring spending under control? Very pragmatically, what's it going to take?
Outstanding. They have raised that debt ceiling 77 times since 1962. And every time they've raised it, they've said, we're going to be fiscally conservative. We're going to come back and do the right thing. But they've raised it 77 times since 1962. It has to stop. For the sake of our children, for the sake of the debt, for the sake of the republic, we're going to stop raising the debt ceiling, and we're going to force the executive to make the wise decisions in regard to fiscal responsibility. One of the primary reasons to fight the debt battle is to force the executive not to spend the way he wishes to spend, to seek concessions on spending. What did the Republicans do? They fought it for a time, then they surrendered. What concessions could we brag about after this compromise? You know, I've always been told that a compromise means that both sides give up something. What did we give up? Everything. What did we gain? Nothing. No concessions on Obamacare, no concessions on spending. Now, in regards to Obamacare, it's really simple. You fight with every bullet you've got. You fight every day to defund it, to repeal it, to get rid of it. No equivocation. Kill the bill. It's none of the federal government's business to be in the health care affairs of average American citizens. Kill the bill. And you fight every day to do just that.
Now, let me tack this down with you, Senator McDaniel, because this is an important question. You know, Senator, you had 18 senators that voted against an increase in the debt ceiling.
Sure.
They were prepared to refuse to extend any more borrowing authority to the central government to bring things under control. if you are faced with a vote to increase the debt ceiling, either yes, I will increase the debt ceiling as a Republican senator, or I will vote against an increase in the debt ceiling. And Senator Paul said, look, the worst thing that happens if we do not increase the debt ceiling is we get a balanced budget. We can prioritize spending and so forth. So if you face, you will face a vote on increasing the debt ceiling.
Certainly.
If you're fortunate enough, how are you going to vote?
No chance of increasing the debt ceiling. We're going to say no. At some point, the adults of this country have to enter the room, quit playing politics, and do the right thing. $17 trillion. It's a mind-boggling number. It's really closer to $90 trillion once you factor in the unfunded liabilities. It's unsustainable. If it's not stopped now, we can't turn this thing around. We don't have 2 more years to play games. We don't have 3 more years to play games. It has to stop now. My vote's going to be not to increase the debt ceiling and to do the right thing for the people of this country.
So what's your response to a critic who would say, well, if you do that, it's going to be chaos. We're going to have all these people aren't going to get paid. These programs are going to shut down. What is your response to that criticism?
Pick your poison. I'll tell you what chaos is. Chaos is having a debt that's so high that it cripples this country. Chaos is having a debt that's so out of control that we can't pay it or satisfy our obligations, and that day is coming. That's true chaos. So we have an option as American citizens. We can begin to wind down this thing responsibly, or we can keep kicking it down the road the way they've done for the last 40 years and wake up one day in a country that's in complete disarray. And don't think we couldn't be in complete disarray with a debt that large. At some point, it's uncontrollable. It can't be fixed at some point. Imagine how terrible things would be if the interest rates went up all of a sudden, or if hyperinflation reared its head. We are at a critical juncture at this nation's history. Disarray. Yeah, there might be some short-term disarray, but that's necessary to salvage what we're trying to salvage. It's worth the fight.
My guest has been State Senator Chris McDaniel, representing the state of Mississippi in the state legislature. He is a candidate, thrown his hat into the ring to take on an incumbent Republican Senator, Thad Cochran, long-term incumbent here from the state of Mississippi. Strong conservative credentials on the part of Senator McDaniel. So we're going to watch your campaign with interest. And Senator McDaniel, if people want to get more information about your campaign, your positions, where can they go?
Absolutely. We have websites out right now. We've got a number of websites, in fact, probably too many. SenatorMcDaniel.com. Senator McDaniel is a good one. That provides some writings that I've done. It provides some background. And a simple Google search on the campaign will also get you to the campaign website. So a lot of websites out there right now.
My guest, Senator Chris McDaniel, state senator in the state of Mississippi, running against Thad Cochran for the United States Senate. Focal Point AFR Talk, back in 2.
Hi, this is Dan Seeley.